Hello, hello. Thank you for coming and joining me today. My name is Jen and this is Jen the Bookworm. And if you're new here, I hope that you enjoy this. And if you are not new here, go away. No, I'm kidding. Stay. I appreciate you very much for being a repeat offender. So today I get to bring you kind of a fun video. I don't get to do these very often. Honestly, I don't know why I feel like I don't get to do these very often. Okay, if you've been here before, you know I don't buy physical books anymore. I have really bad eyesight and I can't actually read from a physical book without getting major headaches. It hurts my eyes, it hurts me. So I use a Kindle where I can make the font bigger, and I very often use audiobook. As a matter of fact, I use audiobook more often than even a Kindle. So I feel like I can't bring you haul books because I don't have big physical book. I don't stack of books for me to show you. However, I don't know why I couldn't just do what I'm doing right now into smaller chunks, but anyway, whatever the case is, today I've got a haul for you. Now, haul books videos tend to do well. People tend to like that. This one is going to be long because I think I've done one. I think I did one and I did a mini one added on to something else. So I have collected quite a few books along the way on Audible and on Kindle that I thought I would share. I have 7 pages of notes on books that I have gotten. I have no idea how many books. I didn't count, but let's go. Let's see them. First, this is from my Audible account. Okay, so the first book I have on my list here is called Unseen, a Will Trent thriller by Karen Slaughter. It is the 7th book in a series that I have not started, nor do I have any other books for. Why did I buy that? Good question. Because it was on sale. I bought it because it was on sale and because I really enjoyed the Karen Slaughter book I've already read. Not part of this series, but another book that she wrote, The Good Daughter, I believe it was called. And it was really good, and I really feel like this is an author that I could easily get through her whole catalog and be happy with most of the books in it. So I bought this in anticipation for one day reading more. The next one is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I got this book because a lot of booktubers have been talking about how great this is. Andrew Wizardly Reads, I think, was the first person that introduced me to this series. But there are others. I believe, what's her name? Tori Talks. I believe she's the one who, or maybe it's Jordan. There is another booktuber who's out there whose mission is to get everyone to read this. So I bought it. It was on sale, and I thought, most of these I bought because they're on sale, so you're going to hear that a lot. But I wanted to get in on this. It sounded like it was going to be good. Now, here is a quote that, say no more. Unveils a solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. Say no more. Take my money. You've got my attention. So I'm interested in that. It's labeled as a romance, fantasy, space opera. So I have no idea what I'm getting into, other than, romance, fantasy, space opera. But we shall see. I hear it's really good. There's, I think, 3 of them, and I hear they're all really good. The next one on the list is Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I bought this because the cover of it and the title of it, and it felt like this is the kind of book that let's be honest, this is the kind of book I would have read a while ago, before BookTube, when I was still reading more vampires and paranormal fantasy, paranormal romance and things like that. So this seems like a throwback to that, but the people that I heard about it from are people who don't strike me as the kind of people who read that stuff, and they loved it. And so I think Mike's book reviews, I think Theo from Rekindled Reader read it. He either read it or he's going to read it. There are so many people who are like completely shocked that this book was so good. It made me curious, made me want to buy it, so I did. It's a war about between vampires and humans. There's a vampire who is telling their story a little bit like Interview with a Vampire by Anne Bryce. So it all made me curious, made me want to try it out. The next book on the list is The Method by James Patterson and Michael B. Silver. I got this book because it's an audio drama, and I got this book because one of the main principal narrators or actors of the book is Zachary Quinto, who, if you don't know Zachary Quinto, he plays Spock in the newer Star Trek movies, or he played in the villain in Heroes. That's how I was introduced to him. He's in American Horror Stories. He's a great actor. I love him. So it's only about 3 hours and 42 minutes. It's not a big thing, but because he was in it, it caused me to want to try it out. And I've heard of James Patterson, although I've never read any of his stuff, so we'll see what it's like. Okay, so the next book in the series is Ghost Road Blues, the Pine Deep Trilogy, Book 1 by Jonathan Maybury. I got this on, I think, a friend's recommendation of the author. And I picked this story because it seemed appropriately horror-filled, and I like horror. I'm always on the lookout for good horror. So it says, long ago there was a serial killer that made a big impact on the town. After the tragedy, the town turned itself into a tourist attraction for Halloween. But then dead and desecrated bodies start showing up again. So it becomes a whole thing. That sounds like a good read to me. And so I got it to check it out. The next one I got is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. Pretty sure I found this one because of Elliot Brooks. The synopsis says that 3 sisters disappear for a month when they are kids. Inexplicably, their bodies start to undergo some strange changes. One of the sisters goes missing and the others need to find her. I don't know much more about it than that. I really try not to over figure out the synopsis or over read the synopsis because there's sometimes spoilers. So if you don't get very detailed synopsis from me on these books, I'm sorry, that's just kind of the way it is. The next book in the series, and I'm kind of trying to rush through these because there's a lot. So sorry if this seems really fast. But the next book in the series is Dark Witch, the Cousins O'Dwyer trilogy book, number 1 by Nora Roberts. I got this because it's Nora Roberts. I've only read one of her books, but I really liked it. It seems like it's a romance with maybe some fantasy thrown in. So I'm interested to see how she does with some fantasy elements. So that's why I bought it. Nora Roberts and fantasy. So the next one is Sparrow Hill Road by Shannon McGuire. It was on sale, and I've enjoyed the couple of her books that I have read. I get mixed reviews on Shannon McGuire. Some people say that a lot of people are like, I got this book because I liked that book, but then they weren't the same animal at all. So I don't know. Maybe I'll like this book, maybe I won't, but it was on sale and I thought I'd give it a try because it was an author that I'd already tested out and liked. The next book in the series? No, the next book in the haul, The Devil Crept In by Anya Alborn. So last October I read my first Anya Alborn book, and that was Brother, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to get another. This one was on sale, as most of these books that I bought were on sale, but I got this because it was on sale and it was Anya Alborn, and I thought I'd give another one of her books a try, and I've heard that this one is another good one of hers. So the synopsis that I got was: missing young boy, people start to lose hope, but cousin and best friend is determined to find out what happened. So, and I think the cousin and best friend are kids, so kids kind of trying to deduce what happened to the missing kid. I got A Time of Courage by John Gwynne. I got this because I'm reading John Gwynne. I'm probably going to read everything that John Gwynne wrote. I mean, I've only read one of his books, Malice. And to be honest, I did like Malice. I liked it a lot, actually. But it was a very tropey book, and everyone who knows. It's a very tropey book. It's the first in a set of 4 books that the subsequent books are less tropey and kind of better developed, I guess, than the first book. I'm saying I guess because I haven't read them yet, but we'll see. I have them all now. This is a series that I believe a trilogy that the series of Blood and Bone. It's the 3rd book in the trilogy, and it's meant to be read after The Faithful and the Fallen, which is, Malice and those books. So this is meant to be the next bit of I think it's same world. I don't think it's same characters. I'm not really sure, but I bought it. It was on sale, and I knew I was going to read it anyway, and I might as well buy it while it's on sale rather than wait until it's full price. And in that same vein, I got The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the Bloodsworn trilogy. This is much later. This is not a finished trilogy. I think only 2 books are out in the trilogy. I believe this is the 2nd of the 2 books. And I got it because it's John Gwynne, and I'm going to read all of his stuff. So I was looking through. Audible can't seem to stop having sales. So that's part of the reason why I can bring you this gigantic haul. But one of the books that they had on sale was Iron, Fire, and Ice: The Real History That Inspired Game of Thrones by Ed West. This is about the War of the Roses and I guess how it inspired A Song of Ice and Fire. Sounded interesting. I also got another book that you'll see later on in the list that's another kind of like inspired by, or this is what inspired Game of Thrones. I guess right now, because I'm reading A Song of Ice and Fire series. Last month I read A Game of Thrones. I'm just into it, and so it sounded good to me. And I don't know when I'll read this, but eventually one day I will. I also got Jade War by Fonda Lee. This is the 2nd book in the Greenbone saga. I read Jade City and really enjoyed it. I'm not sure when I'll be getting back to Jade War, because I did really enjoy it. But there are other things that I enjoy more that I've started since then, and so I don't know when I'll get back to it, but I definitely will. And so I picked up this book. All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Say her name right, that would be nice. This is a book which you've probably already seen me talk about a little bit because it is on my February TBR. And it is I don't remember which booktuber I was watching. I don't believe it was one of my regulars. I think it was somebody I just randomly picked up. But she really liked this book, and she said it's kind of a romance, not a fantasy, but a romance about a person who moves in, who moves, trying to get a new life or something like that, moves in and has a crush on her landlord, who is kind of grumpy. I don't know if it's grumpy sunshine trope or what it is, but he's kind of grumpy. We'll see what it is. It's a romance, and so I'm putting it in my February TBR to read in the month of Valentine's Day. Another one I picked up is The Queen of Blood, which is The Queens of Renthia, Book 1 by Sarah Beth Durst. This is supposed to be an epic fantasy. I forget where I heard it from, but it was on sale, and so I picked it up. I don't have much more of a synopsis than that. That's what I know. I know the name of the book and I know who it's by. The next book on this list is The Black Echo, special edition. Harry Bosch book 1 by Michael Connelly. I have heard a lot about the Bosch books. On the Grimoire Discord, a bunch of people were talking about the Bosch books and how quick and fun a read they are. Then magically this book came on sale, and so who was I to argue? I think Bosch is supposed to be a kick-ass detective. Kind of sounds like the detective shows that I used to watch a lot on TV. And I have read precious little of that genre, but I really liked them, the episodic detective shows, CSI and Law and Order and those kinds of shows. I still like them, but I just don't watch as much TV since BookTube. But I still really enjoyed those before, so I will enjoy this one now. The next book on the list is Everything is Fucked by Mark Manson. Now, I read one of his books before. It was the first book I read in 2022, as a matter of fact. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I really liked it. This book is supposed to be a book about hope. And so what I really liked about the first book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, was that it actually wasn't, it was kind of, the name was kind of opposite to the actual feelings portrayed by the person. And that's what it seems like is the case on this one too. I really liked his first book. I don't know, I'm one of those people who I like a good self-help book. I think they're fun to read through. I don't know if they all help me with an issue I'm having. I don't know that I always buy them for an issue I'm particularly having, as much as I just think that they're interesting reads. Okay, this next one that I got is called Trouble's Child, an Angeline Constantine novella by Terry Goodkind. Terry Goodkind, I know, is kind of a controversial author on BookTube, and he is what he is. But I really like Terry Goodkind, and this series was on my radar, but I didn't have any of the books in the series. This novella seemed like a good place to start. It kind of introduces the main character, so I thought that I would give it a try one of these days, and if I like it, then I'll pick up the series. The next book on the list is The Original by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Kowal. I hope I pronounced that correct. Sorry if I did not. So this is supposed to be a sci-fi thriller. I don't read much sci-fi, but I do. The sci-fi that I have read I really liked, but I tend to not like the super science-y, bogged down with pseudoscience kind of, or even regular science, kind of facts and stuff like that. I tend to like more character-driven stories, and sci-fi sometimes isn't. But when sci-fi is, then I really enjoy it. So I am hoping that, because it's Brandon Sanderson, at least in part, that I will really like this. And I thought I would pick it up and give it a try because it's Brandon Sanderson, and I'm probably going to read most things that Brandon Sanderson has written. I say most things instead of all things because this man is a very prolific writer, and he writes in many different genres and age groups, and I don't know that I have enough time on this planet to get to all of them, but we will see. So this next book is called The One World Schoolhouse, Education Reimagined by Salman Khan. And I got this book on the recommendation of my roommate, actually. I'm going to be homeschooling my daughter next year. And this is Khan, as in Khan Academy, who has the absolutely free Khan Academy. I think they do math and other things, but specifically math. And it's something that some homeschoolers have used as a math curriculum because it's free and very accessible. I think that I think public school is broken, and we could have a debate about that all day long, but I'm taking my daughter out, and at least for middle school, intend to homeschool her. And so my roommate read this, and he really liked it. He was very enthusiastic about it. It's only, I think, like 4 hours long or something like that, but it looked like something that I might be able to glean some things from, use for homeschooling. So that's what I bought it for, and I'll read it one of these days soon. And if I think it's something that anybody would be interested in a synopsis about or something later on after I've read it, then I'll bring it up again. If not, it'll just be a book I've read. Okay, I picked up another book called Infinity Blade Redemption by Brandon Sanderson. You may have heard of him. He's a semi-famous author. This is the second book in a series called The Infinity Blade. I will get the first book eventually, but I picked it up because it was on sale and it was Brandon Sanderson. So that's why I picked it up. We'll see what it's about and probably fantasy, but we'll see what it's about when I get closer to reading it, when I get the first one. The next book I picked up was The City of Thorns, The Demon Queen Trials, Book 1 by C.N. Crawford. This is another book that you may have already heard about from me. I have it on my February TBR tentatively. It looks like a paranormal romance, and I'm trying to fit a couple of romances that I think I will enjoy right now, where my brain is right now in this month. So I picked this one up, and it's on my TBR. The next book I got is a nostalgic pick. This is The Little Princess by Frances Hodgkin Burnett. And I got this because when I was younger, The Little Princess was one of my favorite movies. Star Wars was my favorite movie, but this was one of my favorite movies. My mom and dad used to rent movies, and then magically those movies appeared on a VHS tape that belonged to us. I don't know how that happened. It was magic at the time. And so this particular movie, we actually had the original, the bought movie, and VHS movies were expensive, like $20 for a tape. Hence why we didn't have very many of them that were original, but this one was, and we actually ruined it, us three kids, from watching it so much. For those of you who have never owned a VHS anything, rewinding a VHS is rough. They're not like DVDs. We'd watch it to the end, and then we'd have to rewind it. And rewinding, it puts a lot of stress on the tape that was inside the VHS tape, and it snapped. We rewound it so much that it snapped because we watched it a lot. Literally one day we watched it 3 times just in that day. I don't know. We liked this movie, and it was, it was a Shirley Temple movie. It was black and white. I don't know. We loved it though. So I didn't know it was a book back then. And then when I heard it was a book, I wasn't really in a reading state of mind. So now that I am, and I saw it, I thought I'd pick it up and see if I liked Sarah's story just as much in written form as I did as a kid on VHS. I picked up a book based purely on its cover. Also, the premise sounded kind of cool, but I really got this book for its cover. This is The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy: What Animals on Earth Reveal About Aliens and Ourselves by Arik Kirschenbaum. I hope I said that right. It was on sale, but also it was just, the cover is gorgeous. It was so colorful, and I have things on my Amazon wish list that's on there because it's colorful. I have no idea what I would ever use it for, so I don't buy it, but it's on my wish list. That's me. I like color. Anyway, and I'm strange. But also, from a writer's point of view, which I am a writer if you didn't know, the idea of looking at animals and what it says about aliens, or possibilities about aliens and stuff, that really kind of spoke to me on a writing plane, because I thought maybe it might help me to create cool fantasy and or alien species in future books if I ever need that kind of a thing. So I just thought it would be interesting. So I have it. I have no idea when I'm going to read it, but I have it. Okay, this one is a popular one you've probably heard of before. I got The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I have seen this book floating around Booktubes, so I would not be surprised to hear that you've heard of it. On it, it says it's Game of Thrones meets Gladiator, and it's an epic fantasy. I don't know. I tend to, whenever a book says, this is Harry Potter and this thing, or this is Game of Thrones and that thing, generally it's not. But I've seen other people talk about it. Other people have really liked it. I thought maybe I would like it. It was on sale, and I picked it up. This is one that I already kind of hinted to. This is called The War of the Roses, The Fall of the Plantagenets, and The Rise of the Tudors by Dan Jones. This was another book that it looks at the historical events that that inspired Game of Thrones. But also, I'm big into the Tudors. I really enjoy that bit of history. I'm really big into King Henry VIII. I like that bit of history. So I thought this would be interesting to pick up, and so I did. This one sounded like an interesting premise. It is another self-help book. It's called Drop the Ball, Achieving More by Doing Less by Tiffany Dufu. It just looked interesting. The premise looked interesting. It's kind of, it seems to be targeted towards women, and it seems to be expect a little less of yourself, pull back a little bit so that you can, if you do less things, you'll do the things that you end up doing, you'll do better. That kind of thing. It talks about how although women are still half the workforce, they're still only about 18% of the highest levels of leadership. Women who have careers and family, and they're trying to do it all, often feel like they're not doing any of it very well, or they're struggling in one aspect or the other. And so this is kind of about stepping back and doing a little less so that you can really focus on the things that you're doing. At least that's what I gather it's about. And once I read it, we'll see. Okay, so the next book is The Traitor Prince by C.J. Redwine. And this is the third book in the Ravenspire series, but it was on sale, so I picked it up. I've already read the first book. In November, when I was doing the Read It or Delete It challenge, I picked up the first book in the series, The Shadow Queen or something like that. It was a retelling of Snow White, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of the few bright spots of the Read It or Delete It challenge. I enjoyed it because it had some of the familiar aspects of Snow White, but it also had a lot of unfamiliar aspects, and they really broadened the world quite a bit, and I really enjoyed the book. So I am going to continue on in the series, and this one was on sale, so I thought I'd pick it up now so that I would have it when I'm reading it. So I also got a book called More Than a Gunslinger, a More Than Human novel by J.R. Carroll. And J.R. Carroll is a YouTuber, a booktuber that I have followed and that I do still follow and watch. And I know he's a writer, and I believe he is kind of, he is kind of using BookTube as a way to kind of also give publicity to his writing career. And I had an interaction with him, and he offered me a copy of the audiobook to read through. So I got that. I have not yet read through it, but I intend to. I think this is the second in a series, but he said they're companion more than they are like sequels, so that I can read this one without having read the first one. I did get a sample of the first one for my Kindle, and if I like it, then I'll, buy more or buy it and read it. And anyway, it looks like it's a Western set in the 1860s with a female gunslinger. That's what I know about it. So until I get it, listen to. I won't know more, but I will let you know. So I got this book. I believe I bought it on the Kindle and it came with the audiobook version. It's called The Bookstore Sisters, and it's a short story by Alice Hoffman. And I think I got it because it seemed like it was cozy, Christmassy, in the Christmas season. And it was on sale and the premise sounded interesting, and I got 2 for 1 basically. The story is about a girl who lives in New York but is from a small town, and she's striving to forget. But then something pulls her back to that small town, and she has to go back there for unexplained reasons. It's only about an hour long, though. It's a very short story, so we'll see what's what. I may not be able to get a very good... I feel like an hour long, I may not be able to get a very good sense of this book or this writer, but we shall see. I didn't pay much for it, and it could turn out to be really good and introduce me to a brand new author I've never read. So the next book is The Maleficent Seven by Cameron Johnston. This seems like a Suicide Squad type book where the heroes are villains, and the cover was cool, and so I thought I'd give it a shot. The next book that I picked up, I was really excited about seeing it on sale, and it's called Legion by William Peter Blatty. It is supposed to be a sequel to The Exorcist, and I read The Exorcist back in October. I really, really loved it. And there's a person on the Grimoire Discord who Alex Tall Guy reads. He had been wanting to read the second book and kind of threw out a, hey, is anyone interested? And so I picked it up, and hopefully we will be reading it in March, but doing a buddy read in March. Although I said it real tentative because he is a very busy booktuber with lots of books to read, and he said, let's try March, but if he has to put it back and push it back, then we'll push it back and read it then. But it's tentatively set for March for doing a buddy read on this book. And the audiobook is not narrated by the author, which I think is a shame because the author did such a good job with the first one, but I'm willing to give this one a try with this narrator and see how it is. The next book I picked up was The Shadow of What Was Lost, the Licanius Trilogy, Book 1 by James Islington. I have heard really good things about this book and about this author, so I thought I would give it a shot. I don't know much about it because, like I said, I try not to really get into synopsises that much. But when I saw it on sale, I decided to give it a try. We'll see. It's made its rounds around BookTube. Still kind of making some rounds in some places. So I'll get to it eventually, and we'll see what I think about it. I picked up Half a King, The Shattered Sea, Book 1 by Joe Abercrombie. And I picked it up because it's Joe Abercrombie. And honestly, I've never read any of his books yet. But I have heard really good things, enough good things, that I think I'm going to really like him. I don't want to buy too many of his books until I get into reading him. Because I don't want to fall into that trap, which I think I already somewhat fall into, of just buying all the books. I want book buying to lead to book reading. I know that these are two separate hobbies, but I want them to be interconnected. So, but it was on sale, and I decided to pick it up. I don't believe, it's a Shattered Sea Book 1, it says. I don't believe that it's part of the First Law trilogy, which is the one he is most known for. But I think I probably will still read First Law before I get into this one, so we'll see. But I did pick it up and hope it's really good. Another book that I have on here, which I think I've already reviewed, I've already talked about, is called Big Girl, How I Gave Up on Dieting and Got a Life by Kelsey Miller. This is a book that was recommended to me by someone, and it's about intuitive eating. It's about this girl's journey through intuitive eating, where she kind of chronicles about a year's worth of going through this. And I think I explained it in depth in my wrap-up for January. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, check out my wrap-up for January and TBR for February. It's in there. Okay, this one's title, I don't even know. Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell and Perfect State by Brandon Sanderson. I believe these are 2 books, 2 short stories, 2 novellas, written by Brandon Sanderson, and they were on sale, so I picked it up. So the next one is another book I picked up because of homeschooling my daughter later on. Learning How to Learn, How to Succeed in School Without Spending All Your Time Studying. A Guide for Kids and Teens by Barbara Oakley, PhD, and company. There's a couple of other people in there too. I picked this up. She's not going to regular school for middle school. She may for high school. But I picked this up to see if there's any kind of nuggets of wisdom that could help me through homeschooling. It looked interesting. It was on sale. I picked it up. There you go. I'm hoping that it will be interesting, if nothing else. Another book you've probably heard me talk about a little bit because I think it's on my February TBR. It is on my February TBR. The House Witch, which is a humorous romantic fantasy by an author named Delmark. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's supposed to be a cozy romance fantasy. Ever since Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, I've been wanting to read more cozy fantasy. So I heard about this from Jordaline Reads, which if you haven't checked her out, you definitely should, if you don't mind a little bit of cursing. But I really like her, and she's reading this right now, and she says that it's pretty good. She normally reads horror books, lots of horror books, and she's been somewhat dipping her toe back into fantasy, but mostly she reads horror, and she's reading this, and she says it's really good. Not horror, but she says it's really good, so I think it's something that might appeal to me as well, because it's kind of romancy. I have it in my February TBR. I picked up Ruin by John Gwynne. This is the 3rd book in the Faithful and Fallen series. I also picked up, and I'm probably going to mention it again later because I think I have it on here twice, but I also picked up Ruin, Wrath, and Valor, which are all the rest of the books in the series. That starts with Malice in the Faithful and the Fallen series. I picked those up on Kindle, and I picked Ruin up on Audible because it was on sale, but I will probably buy the Audible of all of them and do some immersion reading on Kindle while listening on Audible. I like that experience, and because a lot of the names and things, places, stuff in this series are Irish, I believe, maybe some Welsh. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that are spelled one way and pronounced another way. So it's nicer for me to get both visually and audibly hear and read the book, so that way I know how it's supposed to be pronounced. I also picked up Nosferatu, a novel by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King, which you probably already knew that. And I've never read any Joe Hill. So I picked it up for that reason. And because I've seen other people review it and they really liked it. I think Jordaline reviewed this not that long ago. I was very tempted to pick it up and read it in December for Christmas, but I had too many other books that I wanted to start, so I didn't end up doing that. I hear it's one of his best offerings, so I'm excited to one day pick this up and read it. Next on the list is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is the third book in the trilogy. I bought it to finish up the trilogy. Again, I've read the first one, and eventually we'll be bringing you the second and third one. The last of the Audible books that I got was The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. This is a booktube darling. I have heard about this book from Mike's book reviews. I've heard about this book from so many people, it's hard for me to keep track of them all. A lot of the people that I watch, sorry guys, a lot of you that I watch, I have heard about this book, and I've heard really good things about this book. I originally looked at this book and said, I don't think so. And here's why. It is humongous. And I don't know, at first I thought the cover gave me sci-fi feelings, but I mean, it's a man in armor on a horse. It is so clearly fantasy. I don't know why I was thinking it might be sci-fi. And then when I hear about it and hear other people talking about it, it sounds like a really good epic fantasy, just huge. Madison Goodyear is another person who was reading this or is reading this and is enjoying it. And anyway, I just thought I'm going to join in on the conversation. The only way to do that is to read it. So I picked it up, and hopefully eventually we'll be bringing that to you. I'm probably going to put off reading it because of how big it is. And then once I start reading, I'm going to wish I hadn't put it off, but because it sounds like it's that kind of book, but we'll see. We'll see when I get it in the rotation. So that is the Audible books. I do have a few books that I got on Kindle, and many of the books that I bought on Kindle, I went ahead and put on a piece of paper. It's several pieces of paper, and I'm going to add this to my read it or delete it. Sorry if you can't read it. It probably is not a very good visual if you can't read it, but I'm going to add it to my read it or delete it pile. It's not so much that I need necessarily help reading these books, but if they're not attached to anything else, then read it or delete it will ensure that I at least get around to it eventually. So here's a couple of the books. We'll go down. I'm trying to rush through these a little bit because time. I got Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. Again, Joe Hill I hadn't read yet, and I heard good things. I looked at the synopsis of this one, and it seems to be a story about a heavy metal singer who in his later years is having issues due to the death of bandmates and that he hates himself. So that's cheerful. We'll see. We'll see what I think about it. I got Little Heaven by Nick Cutter, and I got it because I heard Nick Cutter is a good horror writer, so I'm interested in checking out more horror, so I picked up this book. It is a book about a group of unlikely mercenaries who were thrown together because two of them were hired to kill the third one. It doesn't really sound like horror. Maybe this one isn't, but I picked it up, and we'll put it in the rotation, and we'll see. We'll put it in the read or delete it pile and get around to it. I picked up The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I've heard mixed things about this one, but it was on an extreme sale, so I picked it up. But I heard a lot about this book when I first joined BookTube, and then I haven't really heard much about it lately, probably because everyone is on to her more known, better by some people think it's better novel called Babel. Anyway, she wrote a different book in a different series, and everyone seems to really like it, or at least most people seem to like it. But Poppy Wars was still a little bit up in the air for some people, so we'll see. When I looked it up, it seems to be about a female military protagonist who gets some sort of powers. We'll see what that's like when I get around to reading it. I picked up The Institute by Stephen King. Mostly I bought this because it was a Stephen King book. Plain and simple. It seems to be about special kids who are used for nefarious reasons. Kids with like telepathy and stuff like that. And they're brought to this secret place where they develop these skills to use against people. So we'll see. I bought a book called Santa Cruz, The Festive and Fun Holiday Story by Fern Michaels. I don't know why I bought this book, except for that I've heard of Fern Michaels when I used to read romance, like older romance. I think I've heard of this author and thought that this sounded good. It sounded like it was sounded like it was Christmassy, and I bought it back in Christmassy times, and so I don't know when I will read this. I guess whenever I'm in the mood for fantasy, When I'm in the mood for an older romance book, maybe I'll work this in, or maybe I'll wait until next December and put it in with Christmas stuff. I don't know. I bought The Prince of Fools, which is the first book in the Red Queen's War by Mark Lawrence. I've heard lots of good things about Mark Lawrence. I think I have another one of his series because I've heard good things about Mark Lawrence, and so I'm really wanting to give him a try. This is a fantasy book about fighting the undead, and there's some royal drama and stuff in there. It sounds good to me. Sounds like a good read. It is, I think, a trilogy. Oh, but it says book one. It might be a trilogy, it might be more, but it sounds like a good series. I picked up The Red Pyramid, which is the first book in the King Chronicles by Rick Riordan. Honestly, when I read the synopsis of this, it was like, it's Egyptian Percy Jackson. Basically, it sounds like it's kind of the same storyline, but with Egyptian mythology instead of Greek mythology. But I really like the Egyptian mythology. I do. I really love it. I've written books with that as a theme, and I have read lots of books with that in it. So I enjoy that kind of thing. I don't know if my daughter's going to read these with me or not, but I picked it up because I'll probably end up reading it even if she doesn't. So I also picked up, because lately I've been reading A Song of Ice and Fire. So I picked up Fire and Blood, which is 300 years before Game of Thrones, and it's about the Targaryens, kind of the older Targaryen history. This is by George R.R. Martin, of course. This is the tie-in for the House of the Dragon show, which I still have not seen. But it was on sale, and because I'm reading A Song of Ice and Fire now, I thought that this would be something I'd be interested in. It's kind of the only new offerings we've had from George R.R. Martin in this world. So I got it. I'll probably read it after I get done reading A Song of Ice and Fire. So I also picked up Sour Candy by Kellen Patrick Burke. I picked this up because I saw it on Booktube. It's a short story. It's a horror. And I thought it sounded really good. The person who reviewed it, who I can't remember now, sorry. The person who reviewed it said it was darn near a perfect book. So that sounded like high praise, and I like horror, so I picked it up. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't read this until October or around that area of time, or around that time period. We'll see, but I picked it up to read it later. I picked up a book, kind of different for me, called Red Rising. This is Red Rising series book 1. I think there's like 5 books in the series right now. It's by Pierce Brown. It is sci-fi. Pretty strongly sci-fi. Not sci-fi fantasy, but sci-fi straight. So I want to read a little more sci-fi. I want to like sci-fi more. And so people are reading this series. Mike's book reviews. He is leading a reread of this series. And there's quite a few people on it. I picked it up not necessarily to join the read along, because I don't know that I have time while they're doing the read along. I don't know if I have time to work it in, but the first book is supposed to be a short book, and so I thought I would read it and see what I thought about it. I have heard that if I don't like it, still read book 2, because there's a big departure between book 1 and book 2, but we'll see. I might get around to it. I picked up Arcanum Unbounded. The Cosmere Collection by Brandon Sanderson. It is a collection of short stories in the Cosmere world. Can't go wrong there, so I thought I'd pick that up. I don't know when I'll read it, but I'll work it in there somewhere. I picked up The City of Brass, the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. Chakraborty? I hope I said that right. This is a book I've heard about from a couple of different people. I heard about this Jess Owens first, I think is the first person that I heard about it from on Booktube. There was a big push when I was first joining with Booktube to read more diverse authors. This was one that was pointed to as a fantasy of with a diverse author that you could read. I looked at it, and it takes place in Cairo. You know, I'm a big fan of Egypt, I just said before. So I thought that sounded interesting. And it seems to be about an orphan con woman who accidentally summons a jinn. So that sounds interesting to me. I thought it would be a fun thing to start with. I think it's a trilogy, and if I like it, then I'll keep going in the series. I also picked up Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I heard about this one from Elliot Brooks, and she was Naomi Novik has a series, I think, where she's reimagining fairy tales. This one seems to be Sleeping Beauty, but I think they are companions in the series rather than sequels and stuff. So this one is the second one, but I don't know if it will make a difference to read this one first and read the other one another time. This one was on sale, and so I picked it up. I picked up a couple of books by someone named Coyote J.M. Edwards. The first one I picked up was Coffee, Milk, and Spider Silk, and the second one was Unburied. And these are books that, at least the first one, Coffee, Milk, and Spider Silk, is supposed to be kind of a cozy fantasy. It's a guardsman who decides to open up a cafe. Seems a little bit like Legends and Latte. I don't know how much like it, but I am on the lookout for some cozy fantasy, so I picked up those two books. Another book on the list, I picked up Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I believe I have this one on the Audible, although I can't remember if I bought it or if it was free to me because of my subscription, and now it's no longer available to me. I think that's the case. But I picked it up on Kindle. It was on sale. This is a sci-fi. I think it's a young adult sci-fi, and so I thought it would be something that I might like, that might help me get into sci-fi a little more. And it's Brandon Sanderson, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I picked up a book called Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, and this is a fictionalized book about dealing with the court of King Henry VIII. As I've already said once in this video, and maybe in other ones as well, I really like King Henry VIII historically, and so I'm interested in reading. I got introduced to King Henry VIII because I read a fictionalized romance of the character was supposed to be Queen Catherine's lady's maid, and while the lady's maid herself was a fictional character and the love interest was a fictional character, there were so many actual characters, fictionalized versions of actual characters, Sir Thomas More and King Henry VIII, and so on, that I really fell in love with that history. So, and it made me actually read a biography of King Henry VIII, and you can get a teenager to read a biography and they didn't do it for school. That's something, I think. So I picked this one up because I think it might be something that I'm interested in. I picked up Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is the first book in the Secret Projects by Brandon Sanderson. I've seen a couple of people on BookTube already read and review this book. And I heard it was very cute. I heard it was a cute, sweet little fantasy. And so I'm excited to read it. It's a standalone, but it is in the Cosmere. So that sounds like fun to me. I picked up a book called Mountain Laurel, and this is by Jude Devereaux. Jude Devereaux is my favorite romance writer. She is an older romance writer. I don't mean older as in she's old, but as in she writes older fantasy, older romance, like 1980s, 1990s bodice ripper type romance books. This one I have read before. When I gave away all my books, back when I decided my eyesight had gotten too bad to really read them, and I actually needed the room in my house. I just couldn't have all these books, especially if I couldn't read them. So I gave away a lot of my books, and I decided I will rebuy them on Kindle whenever I want to read them. then I decided I wanted to read through the Montgomery Taggart family books, which a lot of her romance books are folded into this family. She doesn't have that many. They're all, standalone, or maybe they're duologies or trilogies within the family structure. But she doesn't usually write a whole. She doesn't write a lot of books that don't deal with this family. But I was reading through them, and I got to Mountain Laurel, and I went to buy it, and it was like $16 or something like that on for Kindle, and all the other books were like $7 or $8. And so I don't know what made this book so expensive, but I put it on my wish list, and then it stalled me out. I kind of stopped reading this series, if you can call it a series. I stopped reading this author, this family, because I got into a book that was too expensive, in my opinion, for a Kindle book. That it's just way too expensive and it's a much older book. And when I read it before, I don't remember feeling like this was one of her greatest books ever. So I don't know what made it so expensive. But I got a notification that it was on sale, and so I bought it while it was on sale. I'm not reading them right now, but if I decide to go back and read some of those books, then I have it for that time. I picked up The Blade Itself, which is the first book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. As I mentioned before, I've never read him before, but I really want to. This series is much loved, and it's grimdark. I didn't even know that I like grimdark until Game of Thrones, so I'm hoping that I will really love this. It'll be another grimdark series that I really like. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but this was a series that was on my goals list for 2023, so I'm hoping to get to it sometime soon. I picked up The Haunting of Hearst House, which is a Mercy Willow book 1 by Amy Cross. I don't know anything about Amy Cross. I've never heard of her before. I like haunted house books, so I last October read The Woman in Black, which I really enjoyed that book. I like the shows Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor that are on Netflix. I really enjoyed those. So this kind of seemed like that in that vein. So I decided to pick it up. It is obviously part of a series. I don't know how many are in the series, but what I saw online was that Mercy Willow moves into a small coastal Cornish village and gets a job as an estate agent. And it's a haunted house book. So that's what I know about it. And so I will work that into rotation at some point and let you know. I'm going to put that in Read It or Lead It as well. So it could be sooner rather than later. Hard to say. As mentioned before, I picked up Valor, Ruin, and Wrath in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. But I already talked about those. And those are the books that I got. Okay, editing Jennifer here. Sorry about the fish tank sounds in the background. I picked up this book, Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. I'm a big fan of her booktube, and I heard she wrote a book, and so I wanted to support her by getting it and seeing how I liked it, and so I picked this up as well and forgot to add it in. I know I really rushed through at the end there. I've got about an hour's worth of video here, although there's a lot of pauses and stuff that I'll take out, so this won't be an hour-long video, but it's kind of a big one. But it was a big haul. I got lots of books along the way. I didn't buy these all at once because money. But I bought them as I was going, as they were on sale. Some of these, particularly the Kindle books, I got some Christmas money and was spending it on some books and stuff like that. So I just kind of picked up these books along the way. And I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Would you rather me do one of these haul books when I've got a bunch of books to go through? Or would you rather me do them in smaller chunks? In smaller chunks might be more digestible, although I do not promise that I will know more about the books. And the reason I don't give you synopsises on everything is not because it's too long. I'm going to make for too long a video. It's more that I don't read the synopses that often. I just don't want to get spoiled. And sometimes, especially when it's a second book or something, they spoil things that I just don't want to know going in. So I like to go in as fresh as I can. Although some of these I have heard of from other booktubers, and so I know a little bit, but I like to go in as blind as I can. But let me know what you think. Smaller chunks or great big hauls that you'll get far less often. Let me know what you think and tell me in the comments down below. If you've read any of these, or if you're excited for me to start any of these, if there's any that you're just like, ooh, you should really push this up to the front of the line, drop that in a comment. Let me know. I am interested. I will take it into consideration. But with that, I've already made a monster video here, so I'm going to let you go. And I appreciate you coming and spending this time with me. If you've been here for the entire video, you are a champ, and I appreciate you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.